Okay, welcome one and all to another magnificent Terran Tuesday. We are awaiting our own R.H Snow. I'm sure she's probably busy out there. Hopefully, she'll be joining us momentarily. But how are you doing, Black Knight? How have you been since the last time we seen you?
Yes. Well, I'm well. Thank you for asking. I'm just a little bit sleepy today because um, I failed in my mundane morning task to brew coffee. I assumed that I brewed it and I drank it, but I actually like set up the coffee maker. I poured the water, and I loaded it with ground coffee. And I put it on. I even placed it on the stove. I never turned the stove, and I never brewed the coffee. So yeah, it's a little bit of a fail. But otherwise, I was able to
Yeah,
complete all my chores, do some
nice,
edits,
nice.
and even write and publish today's the chapter for the series Lost Numbers. So, what did you do today?
Today, not much today, just an average work day for me. Get some stuff done before the stream. And now here we are in the midst of it all, and we have a magnificent topic to tear into today, and that is animals and animal companions in media and literature, which is quite the vast topic to tear into, but one I wanted to touch on because I am writing a short series right now that involves plenty of animals, particularly a man eater, and I also have a dog in my own life that is plenty of inspiration for the various fictional furry friends that our main characters encounter on the road of their journey. But I'm sure you yourself have plenty of interesting and unique animals in both your world, not the sentient and not so sentient types, as well as just the furry friends and possibly furry enemies that may inhabit it.
Indeed. Well, the uplifted ones. I mean, you could say that this is like the ultimate form of the animal companion because they're uplifted and they are sentient, uh, and it's almost like the the old fairy tales, but in real life, like
Yeah.
the ancient fairy tales with the anthropomorphic animals who could speak, they can think, they can give you advice. Let's say the wise fox, the sly wolf, the powerful bear, the all-seeing owl, and all of these stereotypes from our folklore. And I'm sure that there are different but similar um, archetypes in your part of the world. Um,
Oh yeah.
but but as far as pets go and animal companions, um, you do have quite a lot of them, and perhaps chief among them in the series, the original series, is Snark, the ship cat. Oh, hello, Snow. Hello, hello.
Hello. I had to go help my
Hey
own
ho.
animal companions that were going nuts outside before I got on the
Really.
air. So
All
there's a
good.
lot around here. So there's so I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry.
Oh, it
Okay.
happens. We knew you would be up to something interesting and unique out there on the ranch.
Oh yeah, because well, it's this time it's actually inside puppies. It's actually my little dogs that I have. I have
Oh,
four little dogs, and I have one big girl that lives inside. And then I have two ranch dogs that act as guard dogs outside. So we have a lot of dogs. We have a whole bunch of barn kitties that live all over the ranch, and actually they're also porch kitties and under the house kitties and things like that
yeah.
because they help in the nighttime. But so my
Under the
little
house kitties.
yeah, they're under the house kitties, and I have my house kitty. But when we moved over to our the Wonder Bunker, she doesn't really want to be in the Wonder Bunker unless it's like really cold, and so she's just like,
Oh,
no,
she's not a bunker cat. Oh
no,
no.
she's not. Cats are very much creatures of place, and they have their territory, and so she's established her territory at the other house. So now she's like on the porch all the time. So I just have to live
Yeah,
with it.
cats are an interesting one for sure. You see them
I was
pop up in
talking about
literature.
cats.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
just talking about them. There was oh, I was just talking about Snark.
Oh yeah,
Well, they remember it. You remember from the intro book
yes.
and how they quote unquote procured it, or more like she procured them, but that's another story. So just like all fantasy, well, not all fantasy and sci-fi companion animals, Snark is on average is a bit smarter than the normal cat, perhaps because that cat and her ancestors, they've lived in space on spaceships.
No.
All of them were born on spaceships. They lived on spaceships and they died on spaceships, and it's become a tradition on most Terran ships and on Star Shuttle. They they do like to have cats. Um, it's not because there is like a specific reason. It just feels right.
Hmm.
And maybe from time to time there are like alien pests, let's say mouse-like pests or rat-like pests, and you definitely need a cat to uh, crawl under the house, so to
Yeah.
speak, or in this case, in certain service ducts and air ducts and between the cabling and everywhere, pretty much. So in my case, this kitty is also a bit on she's a bit on the mysterious side. uh, Sometimes she would be somewhere where she's not expected to be, or they would talk about her or think about her and she would appear. But everyone pretty much swears that she's just special. She's just like normal special. She's not magic special. She's not an alien. Perhaps maybe she has like a slightly mutated DNA because space. She's her entire line of cat ancestors have been born in space is like the 1940s, the late 1940s, and so this big Maine Coon, slightly bigger than normal, who can still sneak around the spaceship and use the service ducts and etc. etc. And it's how on pirate ships in Hollywood pirate ships you have the parrot, like the large parrot. Captain has a wooden leg, hook for a hand, and a large parrot. Well, in this case, the Captain Heinze, he doesn't have a parrot, but he has this cat. and everyone loves the cat.
Oh, everybody
Yeah.
loves kitties.
Animal companions. It's a very interesting thing, and a sort of codependency in nature at times, because I know cats became friends with humans because humans would grow things that would attract rodents, and cats would eat the rodents, and humans enjoyed the fact that they would go ahead and munch on those things that would try to eat our crops and the like. And a lot of this stuff, and the kind of like the reason I wanted to bring this one up is because recently I got a little pooch in my life, this lovely dog I call Buddy, and he himself has been almost like an extra toddler in the household, running about, having to keep your eye on him. This little toddler that doesn't get any bigger, and he himself has been an inspiration for about two different stories I'm currently writing. One of them a mystery story, and the other one is actually a sort of safari jungle esque story. Well, he sort of gave me the extra push to start writing those. Um, but what's so fascinating is not only are they characters in themselves, animals, and you find them throughout literature in abundance, but also the different breeds coming from the same animal have tendencies to portray different sort of habits and a type of nature that they carry with them, and they themselves, dependent on that breed, can be very helpful in particular ways. And this is something I know you can talk about a lot there, Snow, coming in from helping out all those animals, and you have your entire litany of animals throughout throughout that area there.
Well, animals, and let me say this: we are animals too, and humans are animals of our own kind. We belong to families of animals like any other creature on the planet that is living and moving, and that's usually how we identify an animal as something that moves under its own volition, as opposed to a plant which has it has synthesizes sunlight and typically is not moves as much, or they may on seeds or whatever, but that's the big difference. We don't synthesize sunlight, and we have a tendency to be a lot more mobile. So we are all animals, and we all have our own special ways of communicating and living together with our own types of animals, our own species. But our connection with other animals, our kinship, is one of the striking things about humanity. It's not necessarily that we are the only ones that do that. We found that wolves and ravens frequently become companions out in the world. Also, badgers and coyotes have a tendency to band together because they flush out the prey that they're after. Animals have made symbolic relationships with each other for over the or symbiotic, excuse me, or relationships with each other over millennia, and we are certainly no different than they are. Humanity, however, has a tendency to want to latch on to anything that they think is even remotely adorable at any level. Snakes, turkeys, turtles. It doesn't matter. We want to make a pet out of it, and of course, we have to realize that not everything can be a pet. But the world is full of adventures that have been shared with humanity and with our other fellow creatures along the way. And certainly it shows up in our literature from the very beginning. As we go to Gobekli Tepe, I hope I'm saying that right, Gobekli, I have to say this properly. It is the granary that we've talked about before. That is one of they thought it was a temple. Actually, it's a granary. But along all the pillars are all these pictures of animals that are guardians of these crops, and also the other flora and fauna of the area. And the elevation of these creatures is, some have attributed to the fact that they would keep the mice away from the grain, and that they would help keep them away. Certainly, as we talk about cats and their status in ancient Egypt, one of the reasons why was because they protected the granaries, and granaries are so incredibly important in a world where you don't have a way to keep any food preserved. You have to dry it and store it, and when you store it, it attracts mice and or other creatures. Any animal that helps you becomes a revered and adored friend. And so, even as we talk about the cat, we also must talk about the dog. And we certainly cannot leave him out because he is the one who has been our friend since long, long before. Probably, I would say that he comes in about the same time as the cat. He's a different kind of companion, coming up to share food, coming up to share warmth. But they also have some tribalistic tendencies that humanity shares with them. Our packs are very similar. We have a tendency to have pecking orders, much like dogs do. We have a tendency to communicate, much like dogs do. And so when we do this, and we've shared those traits with animals that, strangely enough, are very much like us and share some of the same emotions, it stands to reason that we would make friends with them and share our lives with them. And so we have those animals, the cat, of course, which imitates humans, and I've talked about that before. A cat saying mew 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 is actually saying something that makes it sound like you think they sound like. Cats are actually mimics, and out in the world, a cat, you'll hear them imitating birds or clicking to try to imitate a bug or something like that. When they say mew mew, they're imitating you. Well, in this case, or humanity, it's imitating the people in its lives, and what you hear your cat saying mew 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 is actually what it thinks you sound like when you're talking about food. The dog has a tendency to imitate our own expressions, our own facial expressions, which is remarkable. If you smile, a dog smiles usually. It's genuine smiles. You don't want to bury your teeth at a strange animal, but to be laughing or to be happy. In fact, dogs will laugh. They go, woof, 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 woof. If you hear that, woof, 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 that's a dog laughing. They're laughing with joy, just like people do. And then we have to talk about our friend the horse, because humanity and horses have existed side by side for millennia. There's no way that the world could have been settled, put together without the horse. The horse is the friend to man. The horse is our driving force. It's how we get around. It's how we do things. That animal is so important here in Texas that when we had a fire in 2011, and I went out and I was actually fighting this fire. I came back from church, ran to my house, and opened up the gates so the horses could get into our pasture where the pond was and get away from the flames. And all down the road, people were moving horses and animals as fast as they could, because the horse is so important, still is here. They are our companions, even if they're no longer the major way that we get around. They still help us herd our cattle and get our animals together. And then, of course, when you talk about the horse, you have to talk about cattle. They are the ones that originally, many times, helped people get their crops in. It was oxen frequently that actually pulled the plows. And in fact, my grandfather, who was born in 1881, actually had a team of oxen when he was 13 years old to help him pull trees out of the East Texas bottoms so he could become a lumberman at 13. His oxen were his life. They helped him pull those heavy loads out because they were more patient than the horse. The horse really wants to pull and really wants to work, and anybody who knows a good draft horse knows they're eager, but it took the patience of oxen to pull them. And then, of course, donkeys and mules. Anybody who loves long ears knows that these animals have been around as long as we've had horses and donkeys and mules, because they all go together. They are part of that landscape of the rancher and the farmer, who from the time that the sun first rose on the soil and man planted a seed in the ground, we've been living together, trying to raise these things, trying to create life for each of us. And even each of us put sweat into the other's lives. And sometimes it is a more predatory type of relationship when we're raising hogs or chickens because we want meat or something like that. The farmer or the rancher still must put his own sweat, his own blood into keeping those animals safe and alive. A good rancher, a good farmer takes into account their safety and their well-being. And anyone who loves animals does. And of course, the world is full of terrible, terrible things and horrible people that do horrible things to animals. And sometimes animals also kill people. We frequently lose farmers, a bull getting upset because he's not able to get to his girls. Somebody will get hurt because a cow pushes against them, or a horse kicked when he wasn't really looking and takes them out. We all live in this world side by side. And whether we're predators or prey or companions along the way, we rely heavily on our animals to make our lives more wonderful and adventurous. And so in writing Watch of the Damned, I wanted to reflect that. And that's the reason why in the story, each animal, each horse has a name. each animal companion has a name, and they are presented as equal characters in the books with their own particular traits, their own particular personalities, and each human and how they interact with them becomes important to the whole story. And so I think that it's a fitting tribute that today we're talking about our animal companions, because I know that my life would not be the same without them. They are better people than I will ever be. I'm saying that right now, honestly. I've had bad days. I've had days where I've yelled at people or dropped an F bomb or something like that. And I've never had my animals be anything but the best that they could be. They may be bad sometimes, or wee on the floor, or do something that I don't want them to do, but I know they're always being the best animal that they can be, the way that they are. And it inspires me to be better. And I only hope that I can become half as good a person as my dog thinks I am.
Oh, that's poetic, very poetic, but true. There's a type of purity that an animal carries in itself, um, being this creature that does not have to worry about these social things or these human problems, and this spares them so much from the moral traps we often find ourselves in. And with that, I actually have a question that I love to share regarding our animal companions, since we do have authors among us.
Yay!
Here's a question for you. What is one of, or who is one of the most influential animal companions, fictional animal companions that you've ran into in your readings that has had that influence on you? And I have two of them, in fact, for me. One of them much more down to earth, and the other one very fantastical. The first one is a short film that was a short cartoon that was released when I was a child, later on turned into a feature length film much older, when I was much older, and that was Frankenweenie. If anybody remembers Frankenweenie,
I
which is this little story about a boy who loses his best friend, his dog. And it's hard to have a good old fashioned Americana story without a boy and his dog. And let me tell you, that story, as short as it was, encapsulated the love that a good animal can truly bring a child into their lives. And that one helped me captivate that relationship of an animal and a child, that helped me tap into some more of those emotional aspects that helps a writer. But another one, I would say, and this is an animal companion, but we are talking literature, we are talking fiction, and a big animal companion that has influenced my writings is Falcor from the Neverending Story, who is
I
a gigantic dragon that looks half dog. But I've always,
I remember that.
I
Yes.
believe Falcor embodied that pure spirit of an animal and that natural love and curiosity that a lot of our furry friends bring to us. And I look back on that character and even save some portions of dialogue that Falcor shared as this magnificent giant luck dragon that flew through the air, but very much fulfilled that animal companion role in a magnificent way. And I thought it was a great way to take that traditional role of an animal companion and wrap it into this fantastical creature. So there's a lot we can learn just by studying animals and themselves, and it can improve our fiction. But I know you guys have some magnificent answers yourself, so I'll stop hogging I'll stop hogging the microphone.
No, no, no. Keep hogging it. Keep hogging it.
No. Go ahead.
You usually talk less. So.
Well, though I shared pretty much what I had to share on that one. I love my Falcor character, who was a very pure character, and of course the Frankenweenie, which is the essence of of Americana, I believe, really captures it. Well, putting on this slice of gothic undertone throughout it.
Amazing. Black Knight, what do you think? I'll let you go first. I just talked all like for 5 minutes.
Well, in my case, I have been inspired by a couple of real pets, and some of them were not mine. But as far as animal companions in books or movies, I could say that when like during the childhood era, the childhood Soviet era, they did not have too much of this, except there was a Soviet cartoon, so to speak, which was hilarious, and it was about the wolf and a rabbit, and they pretty much had no names. And the name of the cartoon was Just You Wait. That's the closest I can translate it to. And basically, it's set in anthropomorphic Soviet Union with all sorts of animals. And you have cows, you have bunnies, you have bulls, you have cats, you have dogs, but of course they're wearing clothes and such. They're just rarely talking. Just mostly the wolf is talking and the bunny is talking, and of course the wolf is constantly chasing after the bunny because he wants to eat the bunny, of course. And in true fashion of the day, the wolf is presented as like more of the on the hooligan side of things. He smokes, he litters, he destroys public property. He even tries to steal stuff from time to time. And the bunny is this like faithful model of what a true communist should be. But like apart from all of the ideological bullshit, the whole animation style is adorable, and the scenes and the scenarios they stumble into, both of them are insane, and probably like that's from my early childhood. I will always remember it, and these days you can find it for free on I think on YouTube. You can watch.
I have a question for you. What inspired the hamsters?
What inspired the hamsters? Well, a real hamster. The a friend of mine, he had a hamster, and the hamster was overly large. I had no idea. I had no idea what she fed him with, or what he like the parents fed the hamster with. The hamster was not fat. The hamster was just large, like really big. And one day I remember I was there, and the hamster was like he usually ran away from his enclosure, and he had climbed atop the fridge, and their neighbors had a cat, and that cat was like very unruly cat, and she would sneak into the neighbor's house, like all the neighbors, the surrounding neighbors, and she would steal food. So this cat would at that moment, because they were like baking some meat, and she was drawn in by the aroma of the barbecue, and the hamster had escaped the enclosure, and he had climbed atop the fridge, and the cat tried to catch the hamster, because
That's what.
cats chase after cat. That's what they do. But the hamster fought with the cat. He
Oh my
not
goodness.
just he not just bit the cat, he bit the cat, and when the cat somehow managed to not fall off the fridge, but like claw at him, the hamster used one of the magazines. There were like a stack of magazines atop the fridge, and he somehow used the one of the magazines to jump from the fridge and land. He glided with the magazine, and he landed on the table. And the cat was just sitting there. The cat was so stupefied that she just sat there atop the fridge, looked down,
Oh.
and and limped away. The cat just limped away.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, that's the real inspiration
Nice.
for the hamster. And the magazine was red. The magazine, I remember
Oh
that
boy.
the magazine was red, and the magazine was one of these old magazines that we had back in the day, which were like hobbyist magazines for airplanes, and it had like a jet fighter on the cover. So this is like the basic, the core of the inspiration for the hamsters, and especially for Awesome.
As a teacher, I had hamsters in my classroom along with mice and other little animals. And I'm telling you, hamsters are savage. They're savage little things. They really do. People don't realize how tough they can be. And they're adorable little pets. But you always try to keep them separated from other hamsters unless you're really into knowing how to take care of them, because they're, a little bit of an isolationist. They kind of loners. And I had like a Siberian hamster. Actually, it was a little tiny fellow, just as sweet to me, but they can bite. They can do all kinds of stuff. There's I have a terrible story from school. Actually, it wasn't my hamster. It was one of the fourth grade teachers, and she had the idea that she wanted to teach children about nature and how things happen. So she bought two hamsters. She named it Elvis and Priscilla, and after the singer. And so Elvis and Priscilla had babies, and they were all excited, and the children gathered round to look at it. And telling you, this is real. And Elvis ate the babies, and Priscilla killed Elvis right there in front of the kids. And it was just the most terrifying thing. My teacher was literally crying when she came to the teacher's lounge. She told me the story. Elvis ate the babies, and then Priscilla killed Elvis, and I don't know what to do. I was like, all you can do is tell them that nature is sometimes very wild, and wild animals are wild animals even after we tame them. And so you've taught them a valuable lesson. And she still cried, and I did too, because I felt so sad. But so that was my first real introduction to hamsters outside of my classroom, because I'd always had mine isolated. And I was like, wow, they can really be tough. But they're sweet little pets. Just always keep them by themselves, because they really do have teeth and claws, and they can go crazy. Even if they're tiny. And so with my books and stuff, having come from a classroom setting, I was always reading books about animals and learning about and of course I had little bitty kids in my classroom. I had like 4-year-olds. So we have all the old, stories about Harry the Dirty Dog, and we have, stories about, Danny and his dinosaur. But my favorite books about animal companions come from my own childhood and when I first started reading novels. And there are 3 of them that really hit home. First one is Where the Red Fern Grows. My teacher read this to us at school like they used to do, where they would read a chapter from a book every day. Where the Red Fern Grows, an absolutely fantastic tale. If you have not read it, you need to read it. It is by Wilson Rawls is his name. A novelette. So if you want to read something that's fast, go ahead and read this book. She started off and she read it to us every day. The story of Little Dan and Old Dan and Little Ann, which are the name of the two beautiful red-bone coonhounds. They were just these beautiful little dogs. And if you've ever seen a red-bone coonhound, they really are. They're fantastic little hunting dogs. And it follows the story of this boy and his hunting dogs and the transformation in his life that occurs over the course of a year as he trains them to hunt, and they go out and they help save him from things, and an ending that I can't give a spoiler on it if you've never read it. But by the time we finished with this book, the ending was so powerful. My teacher literally sat the book over to the side and laid her head down and sobbed on her desk. She couldn't stop crying. The class was crying. Everyone was crying because the ending was not only beautiful, but it was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And anybody who's ever loved an animal and lost it knows that heartbreak. And the book did it so compellingly and so beautifully. It has become a classic about the relationship between dogs and humans, and that work of the animals in our lives to bring in food and to help protect us. And so I want to start off with the red fern, where the red fern grows, with red-bone coonhounds, because that book is actually the reason that one of my main characters has red-bone coonhounds, is because of that. And it shows up in the book that there is a certain character that will actually raise them and grow them, and it's because of that book. But then we go from purebred animals to the mutts. And our next book is Old Yeller. And I'm unusual that I actually read the book before I saw the movie. And so Old Yeller is a book by Fred Gibson. And it is a fantastic book. If you have not read it, I know most of you probably have watched the movie Old Yeller. I need you to read this book. The prose is magnificent. The humor is there. It is actually a funny book. And then once again, is a story about dogs' role in the life on the prairie, on a frontier, keeping away predators and people that might harm you, making sure that it would drive back anyone that it wasn't sure about. And Old Yeller, of course, is a mutt. He's not a beautiful little red-bone coonhound. He's not a purebred of any kind. He's a strange dog that comes up on the property. And at first, the mother is wary of this dog because she doesn't know, is he dangerous? Why is he out running around? In a world where animals like dogs were actually far more scarce, it was unusual to see a dog just wandering across the prairie unless it was wild or maybe it was sick or something was wrong. And also dogs, and I'm saying this as a rancher, dogs can be very destructive to livestock. I've had our livestock attacked by dogs, and it's not because the dogs were bad. The dogs are being what dogs are, and they will go out and target animals, especially when they're trying to find a mate to breed with. They will go looking for livestock, and you have to train them diligently not to do those things, and you have to make sure that your dogs don't run with dogs that can do that. Otherwise, people will shoot them because they don't want their horses or their cattle to be killed, or their goats. Like I've had baby goats that were killed, big ones too, because dogs got into my property. It's heartbreaking. So this woman is very scared of this dog, and she doesn't want it coming onto their property. She's afraid he'll kill the chickens, and he does get into the chickens once. But a bond grows as this dog takes on this family who the father has gone away. And he takes on the family, starts to protect the family and helps the mother and the son with their chores. And of course, the ending is iconic because it's that devastation of having to make decisions about people that we love, including our animals, the humans, and the humanity that we see in our animals is so overwhelming. And I say they're people in our lives. They populate our world. And Old Yeller does this in a way that no other story does. It brings to life the decisions that we sometimes have to make about not just us, but about others in our lives that we love. And Old Yeller is a classic in that respect. And it really shows that bond and the devastation that it can give to us when we love something so much and then have to let go. The final one in my trilogy, because these are all three from about the same period in my time. I was probably in my 4th to 5th grade years when I read these. The Incredible Journey by Sheila Burnford. It's also known as Homeward Bound, a story about 3 animals, and you've probably seen it as a movie. I once again encourage you to find the book and read it. It is stunning. It is absolutely one of the most beautifully written books about animals because it is told entirely from the animal's perspective. That you hear voices in the books, but it's not spoken in words. It's the what they see around them and how they interact with the world and the world itself and all of its beauty of a Siamese cat interacting with a mountain lion or dogs having to face down bears and other wildlife. The book was actually inspired by Sheila Burnford's own animals, a bull terrier, a Siamese, and a Labrador retriever that were all friends, and they were her pets. And she wrote this story based on their real life personalities. But this story has become iconic because not only because of the characters in it and how they respond to everything, that they are embodiments of the breeds themselves. The bull terrier being fearless and always pressing forward, and the Labrador being a goofy, happy-go-lucky fella. And then there's this little cat that's just being a cat. It's going to do what it does, and at the same time, she is brave and loyal. And so we have these 3 animals, and we have their interactions with each other, but we also have their interactions with the environment around them. Their interface with the wild animals that they once were, the wilderness versus the domesticity of animals that are interacting with humans, and of the danger and the peril that's on both sides, that balance between wild and domesticated, and how we really don't realize that this little creature that's sitting by my side right now, his name is Pepino, and he's a little dog that actually I've had ever since he was born. He was born to a rescue dog, and who got married to my mother's dog, whose name was Sugar. And there he is. He's been in my life for now the last 13 years. But I know for a fact that when something happens outside, he's no longer a 5-pound peekapoo. He's a savage beast. He becomes wild and barks and will jump up to defend me. And I'm like, little dude, I know you could do it, but I really don't get, there's mountain lions out on my property. I don't want you getting hurt. That interface in Incredible Journey. Now you're hearing Candy. If you can hear that, she's the hound. She's my ranch hand. So she's out there right now barking because somebody's rolling up in my driveway. So I may have to jump off for just a second. But in Incredible Journey, there's the balance between the wild animal and the domestic, and they do become, in their own right, the fierce creatures that they must be in order to survive. They show their true face, and they lay beside us so gently and or so funny sometimes, or woolly, but they seem domesticated. We don't realize these animals are holding in their power just so they can be with us. And we need to realize what an incredible gift this is, to have a creature of that power and history willing to be by our side when we're sick or in trouble, or when we cry and they lick our tears away. They could have been out on a mountain howling, chasing a rabbit. Instead, they chose to be with us. And we would do well to remember that.
Very powerful indeed. And I do remember the red fern, where the red fern grows. I remember reading it in school. We read that one in school, and then the teacher brought in the movie, and we saw the film version as well.
Wow.
So that is a powerful book, and I never knew that Homeward Bound was based off of a book. I have to look that in, because that was almost one of my choices, was Homeward Bound, because I remember growing up with that film.
Yeah, it's a fabulous book, and you really do want to read it. If you liked your book about the safari, this has a lot in common with that, because it's fictionalized, but it talks about animals interacting and being around each other, and without a human word being spoken except by the humans. It actually portrays animals so incredibly.
I'll have to look it up, that's for sure. And speaking of safari, because we have been talking about our wonderful pets that we spend time with and the various fictional animals that inspired us, but there's also a touch of horror when it comes to these animals. And we did touch on the wolf momentarily, but that was actually a big one. The legend of the wolf that treads across multiple lands, of the devastation it had brought, and as well as the danger that it posed upon travelers. And then there was also the wild dog. And this is a story I actually want to share from a book. I believe it was The Man Eaters of Rudapai by Kenneth
Oh,
Anderson. Um,
Mm.
and he has this segment where he talks about the wild dogs of India and how deep in the jungle there'll be these packs of upwards of like 50 dogs, and they will use their strength and wit to hunt down creatures much more deadlier than themselves. He talked about this moment when he heard the barking of dogs and he grabbed his rifle. He went to go check what was happening, and it turned out that they were hunting down a tiger, and that they had
ooh.
that a pack of dogs had split from the main group to chase down the tiger, and the main group was running a flank around them to cut off the tiger. And that these dogs that he saw them surround the tiger, and then the barking of the faraway main pack approaching, which scared the tiger to break out of this circular group where these dogs were biting him from his legs, were biting his legs, his back legs. And when the tiger would turn around to face the dog and strike back, another dog would bite from his side or another ankle, and they were tiring him out. But he would eventually break free. And before he knew it, these wild, vicious animals hunting down a literal tiger bursted out from the brush, running past him, all of them focusing on the tiger, and not one dog, because wild dogs don't hunt humans, just completely ignored him as they went on, or at least the wild dogs of this area. They had a lot more to hunt other than humans. So the humans were outside their periphery of what they would hunt. And he said that the next day he sent out scouts to find out what would happen, and the tiger was cornered. The tiger killed 5 wild dogs, and the rest of them essentially just devoured and dismantled the tiger, and also ate some of the wild dogs that had fallen. So,
Mm.
nature in itself is beautiful, it's majestic, but these animals, uh, they put the punctuation on how much of a competition it is out there and what they're willing to do to survive and make it to the next day of that continuous competition. They're the creatures that litter the forests, that hunt in the night, and um and just bring this majesty and awe and fear to the surrounding landscape, especially the tiger. And I'll share some more stories about the tiger, but I'm sure some of you have some awe and fear inspiring animal stories or animal legends that you heard of. And I'm sure, Black Knight, you have to have at least one story about a wolf.
Mm. About wolves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
come on. I know.
I have like because back in the day, I knew a bunch of uncles um, who they were all hunters, um, and of course they would share like these stories about, oh yeah, I've shot this deer, or I shot this wild hog, and this and that. But um, one day they had like I think they had one of them had one of them or two of them had birthdays at the same day or something, or the next day, I forgot. But they told the story how Um, they were they were hunting like hog which was sick um, with rabies,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, they had to kill the hog and quickly, um, and so they had two hunting dogs, but one of the dogs somehow fell in a hole in like while chasing, looking for the tracks. The dog fell in the hole and injured its leg. No, I think it. They said it the broke its leg, and they sent the other dog, the second dog, but the second dog was attacked by the hawk and was killed.
Wow.
And the hawk ran away. The hawk did not attack them. The hawk for some reason the hawk ran away, and it was a big hawk, like and um, they attempted to track the hawk themselves through the forest, but every time when one of them would get near, the hawk would like circle back and get behind another of the hunters, and there were four of them, I think, and that continued all day, and it was night when they decided to basically to give up. But as they were getting ready to leave the area, they heard a howl, and one of them saw this wolf, and wolves are big, but this wolf was quite big, and the wolf was not like the wolf was just sitting there and blocking their way. They were scared, but for some reason one of them he decided to not shoot because the wolf was not aggressive. He was just sitting there, and they just stayed for a few minutes, and they heard the hog um, in the distance, and the wolf also heard the hog, of course, and the wolf pretty much jumped into the forest, and it would poke its head out some under some brush, and it was as if the wolf was asking them to follow him, and they made a decision. It was like 3 against 1 to actually follow the wolf, because we have guns. If something happens, we will we'll shoot the wolf. We don't care. But it's peculiar, it's strange. Why is the wolf acting like this? And the wolf actually led them to a clearing, which wasn't that far away. They just couldn't follow the tracks under the brush and in between the trees, and the terrain obstructed them. So, they don't. We are humans. We can't smell the scent of beasts, etc. So the actually that wolf um, led them to where the hog was hiding, and they shot the hog, and the wolf, only after that the wolf ran away. And later next year they found the same wolf, and that was the pack, the alpha of a wolf pack.
Wow. Very majestic. That is a majestic story right there.
And I will guarantee you that hog, and hogs by their own right, an extraordinarily dangerous creature, is just why they're featured frequently in Water of the Damned an animal foe. Uh, that hog was probably coming by and rooting up or coming after the young pups, or had been.
Yep.
And
Most probably.
they will eat small animals, and they will actually eat calves even if they find them in the brush, which is why we have a very large population of hogs, which are very different than javelinas, which are the wild form of a peccary that shows up in Texas and has been all the way out to the Red River in the northern reaches, but now is found mostly in the valley and out west. But the wild hogs are everywhere in Texas. And wolves and coyotes do suffer from the predations of these creatures because they eat the small animals on the ground. They eat the puppies. They'll eat any kind of animals that are associated with anything that nests. They'll eat meat. They're omnivorous. And so, and that's another fascinating thing. Anybody who's ever had a pet pig or who has loved pigs, they can be so friendly and so adorable. They're coming from this wild creature that could literally tear you up in a heartbeat. It's one of the most dangerous things you can hunt out here. There have been some that we've seen that are up to 500 to 800 pounds just in our own area, with razor sharp tusks.
That's a big one.
Yes, we've had some that supposedly are bigger, but we can't verify. But we believe there's one out here that's close to 1,000 pounds. They have razor sharp tusks. They will actually gut you, going up your leg, tearing up right into your most prized possessions, and through the stomach to gut a man. And you have to be extraordinarily careful in hunting them. And they're very hard on dogs. The dogs that do help with hunting usually will make a call sound. That sound that you made my dog hear, which is that she's a call dog. And she probably she's a rescue. She came to us actually when she was hunting our chickens one day, and we took her in and taught her to not do that anymore. And she's a fantastic dog. Absolutely, her name's Candy. And she was probably raised to be a call dog. She's actually a yellow cur, much like Old Yeller, probably what would be known as a red Lacey here in Texas. She's a part of the Blue Lacey group that is actually the state dog of Texas. And they're sort of a amalgamation of all different breeds created to be one of the perfect ranch dogs. And in her work, she would have been doing the calling. In other words, finding the hog, chasing after it. Then there's the catch dog, which is the one that actually catches the hog. Those are usually pit bulls out here. And although you can put a cover on it, and this is not denigrating anybody that decides to hunt in the traditional ways, but I never wanted my dogs to do it because I know how badly they can get hurt. We have traps now, and so I'm like, okay, if we're going to hunt hog, we'll trap instead. But hog hunting is a big deal around here, and it certainly is something that the animals do help with, especially the call animals, because they tell you where they are. They will call, and the wolf was acting probably much like a call dog, and that it would point and take the probably hoping that they would leave something of it behind, because that's the kind of interactions that wolves have with other animals, notably ravens and other creatures. They look to where they will go for carrion or something else, and they will find those places where they can find those animals, and then they take down the younger, the oldest ones that are the weakest, and take them out of the herd. And it's usually found because they have these birds that are going after the dead or the other parts of the herd that are being left behind. And so they actually use them together. And wolves are incredibly brilliant. And they're very dangerous. They can be very dangerous. And at the same time, they're to be respected like any wild animal. We know they can kill us. We know that they might decide to. And if they do, we have a right to defend ourselves. But we don't need to go looking for a fight if there's not one needed.
Well said indeed. And the tenacity and cleverness of animals and how they learn is actually very miraculous to see. Because you see these animals, you think that they're all predatory, they're all rushing off of carnal instinct, yet they can learn extremely quickly, and they can learn to not make mistakes twice. And I said I was going to share a story involving a tiger. And um, in this piece of literature I was reading, true story, by Kenneth, no, it wasn't Kenneth Anderson. I believe this one was by Jim Corbett, a famed hunter, for essentially taking down the man-eating tiger who has killed more people than any other tiger, with over 400 confirmed human kills. Yeah,
Oh,
and there are a number of tigers that have man-eaters out there that have confirmed body counts in the triple digits. There's been more
wow,
than one of
that's
them.
a small town.
Yeah, it's a
Oh
town.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They and they're hunted for months at a time. And he was hunting one of these beasts, and he was near a ravine, and he said that he knew the tiger was around him, but he didn't know where. Then he realized it was coming up directly behind him, and the
Mhm.
only thing he could think to do was to toss himself into the ravine. And he did. He just threw himself into the ravine, and quickly he reached for his rifle, because in a moment the tiger had jumped where he would have been, and landed in the ravine as well. And he grabbed his rifle and turned it on the man-eater. And as soon as the man-eater saw his gun, it jumped away because it knew the devastation of his weapon. And that's
Because
when
he hunted so many people, maybe that
exactly,
gun
it's not that he
he
yes,
learned.
and that's the thing, that man eaters or hunters who go after man eaters, that's something that they're afraid of, is that a tiger whom gets shot at learns the danger of a gun and the danger of men who wield guns, and they themselves become that much more difficult to hunt. There are a number of stories like this, like another man eater, where two separate occasions it would jump on top of a person to maul them, a traveler, but it would sink its teeth or fangs into a product they were carrying, usually a heavy sack or something of the sort. It would be filled with grain, and multiple times this tiger would run off without a person whom it wanted to eat, and it would have this sack of grain in its mouth. And it learned over time to never attack people who had things like that, who were carrying objects. So a lot of the people who would travel around that time would purposely carry a sack with them or something heavy, in hopes that if the animal ever came around, that it would pass them up because of that for which it carried. So there's
Wow.
this amazing jungle lore behind all this, and how the variety of animals interact. Two other quick stories, both revolving around tigers, and reasons why I love these books, because they give so much jungle lore. One is of a hunter, I believe it was Jim Corbett, who knew he was near a man eater, but he couldn't see him. And he knew he was on his trail, but he was afraid the man eater may have picked up his scent. So he had to be twice as cautious while approaching, because the big cat could simply be lying in wait for him. But then he heard the sound of what he called a century monkey up ahead, and he looked up in the sky, and on a branch near the top of the canopy was a monkey making a particular type of wail to its fellow monkeys, that there was a dangerous predator in the area. And he noticed this monkey was staring at him and then staring somewhere else in the brush. And he knew that he was one of those dangerous predators that the monkey had seen, and whom he was warning the rest of the pack of monkeys about. And that he was staring directly at him because of that, but he was also staring at something else somewhere else. And he figured, that's the tiger. The monkey's looking at me because I'm a danger, and then he's staring at the tiger because he's in danger. So paying attention to where the monkey was cocking his head, he swiftly made his way around that particular area and got the tiger from the flank, using the call of nature, this animal that's just trying to warn his fellow animal of the danger of this animal. This is these predators. Much like how you're saying you had a essentially you were saying, Snow, about teaching dogs to be call dogs. There's very much the same way for these monkeys. One of them is just out there as a scout. And another story is when these two gentlemen were waiting on a tiger to possibly return to a kill, and they knew it was approaching because of the same thing. From afar, they heard the monkey, and then they heard um, just the jungle come to life with various prey animals all releasing a wail or a cry as this predator was approaching. And the closer it got, the louder and the louder the jungle got, like some sort of approaching monster that is parting the ways. And I use these a lot to capture the essence of fear. An essence of fear that, is carnal, is real, exists. These animals are out there. These other animals are warning each other of their presence. And when I write something from a horror standpoint, on a horror genre, which I will be soon, I pull from these tales, these true animalistic adventures of these real beasts out there that can take your life, that are alive, that are breathing, that are prowling in the dark, looking for something to eat. And I would essentially tell anybody out there, take a look at Kenneth Anderson's literature. Take a look at James Corbett's literature. It's not that great. It's not like the best read in the world. These aren't gentlemen who are authors who are fashioning themselves to be the best prose writers possible. These are gentlemen who are fashioning themselves to be the best hunters possible and hunting down some of the most dangerous game out there and recording the threats these beasts can pose. And when you read it, you feel that aura, that sensation of horror that is just brought on by the real, by these creatures. And it gives you not only a respect, but a deep sense of awe of the very world we live in.
I think that what you're talking about with these, when we see this in the wild, and this is how it comes back to companion animals, when we experience animals in their own state, with their own kind, acting as they have since the dawn of time, since they were first created, they are showing us how our own companions would act if we weren't there. And we get a sense of who they really are. And we've become so removed from the wild world around us because we, as human animals, we live in tribes. We live in vast tribes. Even though we may not be blood kin, or we may not be actually even know who our neighbors are, when we go to a particular city and we say, I want to live here and I'm going to work in this place, I'm going to make some money, you join that tribe. Basically, you start following the football team, or you start going to places to eat that you think other people might enjoy because you want to see your other humans around you. We are very much animals that are creatures of tribalism. We want to be with other creatures like ourselves. And so we have created our own wilderness, our own nests, and we are removed from some of our fellow animals. Even though they do move in, they come in, the coyotes especially, and the foxes have made their way into the cities, and the wild cats and the wild dogs of the cities as well. But when we go out into the world and we see our animals, instead of being the pet beside us, there are these wild creatures. It really stirs something in us. It wakes us up to what these creatures really are. And the same thing with a horse. I have a horse and I have two donkeys. I have Ranger, who is my quarter horse, although he's huge. He's like 17 hands high. He's almost too big to be a quarter horse. And actually, his father was famous enough that everybody around here knew him. And I raced him from a baby. And to watch him when he was, they were trying to break him and they never could. And I had one of my friends who actually is a wonderful man, a real cowboy, and he took Ranger over, was going to teach him. And Ranger just started ripping around that pasture. He wasn't going to let anybody load him onto a trailer he didn't want to be on, and he wasn't going to go, he decided. And he just started booking around that pasture, tearing up the soil as he was going, his hoofs just flying. And I'm like, this thing could kill me in a heartbeat. He weighs probably 1,200 to 1,500 pounds, and he lets me pet him. And here he is threatening the cowboy that's supposed to come over to help me get him to be a riding horse. And Ranger has stayed a hay burner ever since. He's green broke, and you can put a blanket on him and even put a saddle on him, but I've never ridden him because I didn't want him to have to go through that. When my neighbor brought him back, he said, he doesn't want to get broke. And I'm like, you know what? He doesn't have to go through this. I'm not a cowboy. I don't know how to ride right now. I'd love to have him for a riding horse. But you know what? What he thinks, if it's that important to him that he doesn't want to learn, then you know what? I'm going to let him be my friend. And he's ended up being a guard horse. He's very attached to us. He's attached to me. He's right outside my front door right now, and we talk over the fence. He watches our other animals. And you were talking about mornings. The day that Cloudy was killed. Cloudy was my little Shetland pony. He was a little bit bigger than a Shetland. He was a rescue, came to us, and I had him in our pasture with Ranger, and they were friends, and along with Cinnabon, my longhorn cow, who had been retired from being a mama. She was now just living with me because I wanted her, and she was beautiful. And so they would all go together. They were you couldn't break them up. They were a set. And Ranger comes up to the fence, and he paces back and forth, bobbing his head and trying to get me to come over there. And at first I thought, well, he just wants to get fed. I tried to give him some food. He didn't want it. He kept pacing, and he kept tossing his head. And I noticed Cloudy wasn't there, and I told my son, I said, we need to go find Cloudy. Can you go find him for me? So my son strapped on his pistol and went down. He wasn't that old at the time, but he was like 16, something like that. Went down to the bottoms and found Cloudy with his head removed, actually taken off, pulled off in a direction. Cloudy was an 800-pound pony, but a mountain lion had killed him, and we found the track later. Ranger was trying to tell us something had happened to his friend, was actually trying to actively warn us. And went down there with my son while he was walking through this very dangerous area at that point. This is a fresh kill. The cougar can come back at any time. And they can get up to 200 pounds or so, and you think, well, that's not that big. Maybe I could take it. I got news for you. If a cougar drops out of a tree on you and lands on your back and bites your neck, you might die. And probably the cougar knew enough to know not to mess with a man with a gun. But we're not sure. But with Ranger there, Daniel told me how Ranger walked with him the whole way and wouldn't leave. And even though there's a large cat in the area, Ranger went back that way to make sure that my son had somebody around. Ranger wasn't afraid of that cat. The cat obviously chose somebody smaller and weaker than Ranger. Prey animals, even though they are herbivores, and we think of them as being flighty, but they can be extraordinarily powerful and brave. They are remarkable creatures, majestic and beautiful, and we sometimes don't see them through the eyes of wild creatures, but they still are. The spirit of the horse still runs wild in the American West, and to see them in the great herds rumbling over the plains is certainly something that no one should ever forget. But to know that they choose to be with us, that they choose not a life of slavery, but a life of freedom alongside of us. Ranger lives in a pasture. He doesn't have a stable to go in. We're not living in that kind of environment where he usually needs something like that. When a bad storm comes, he heads down into the trees, and they have shelter there. We also have another shelter when it's really bad. We bring them up and put them under our pole barn. But he chooses to be here. He could run off at any time. He could jump that fence as easy as I could walk through a door. But he doesn't. Why? Because something binds him. This animal that is an animal that has a completely different mindset than humans has decided to be with me. And to see that as an honor, to see that as a bond that runs deeper than time, and to realize that these animals by our side are choosing most of the time that they will be here. And we need to honor that when we talk about it in our literature, that so many times in literature, the pet is a pet and he's right over there and it's cute, and then they move on. but are they actually partners in the story? And in Watcher the Damned, I really wanted a story that realistically portrayed that partnership between animal and human. And we do have some fantastical creatures. I know we talked about Black Knight's hamsters, but we have, for instance, a chupacabra in the story, and he's very young when he's picked up, and so he's, as a spoiler, he actually becomes a part of the main characters of the story, and he sees the world through his own eyes. He is able to communicate a little bit because of a certain spoiler that's in the book, but he's still an animal. He's still who he is. Even though he's a created being, this amalgamation, a chimera that was genetically created to become the top predator instead of mankind, he sees the world in a different way. And when he bonds with this tribe of people, the main characters of the story, he has his own dignity and his own self worth, not merely an anthropomorphized creature, but in his own right as a chupacabra. And the same with the books that I've written. Every book has animals in it. And so for each of our characters, there's usually an animal companion somewhere in the story. Our dogs all have that same, their own lives and their own dignities. The cats that we have actually play a central part in the story. Certainly, Kitty, who actually is, if there's a spoiler for Kitty, her name is just Kitty. She's a little calico cat that Oscar, the chupacabra, loves very much. And then there is our main villain's cat, and her name is Princess Precious Sweetums, and she is probably Satan. Actually, is what people believe she is. She's an extraordinarily mean little cat. She's very vicious, but she does dearly love Boss Chateau, who is the main villain of Purgatory. And so each of these animals has their own reason for being in the story. They have their own character, their own arc that they have, but they are still creatures. They are still who they are. And being able to write them without making them just another human in the story or just a side note was was a privilege for me, because I had always wanted to see them in the same light as I saw some of my heroes write about animals. Uh, Black Beauty, the stallion, a story that was written actually to wake people up to the horrors of animal abuse. And another story, Beautiful Joe, which is written about a dog who is abused and becomes a beloved pet. These stories and how they treated animals and the way that you could tell a person by how they treat the animals in their lives. I wanted that to be reflected in my stories as well, because animals bring us so much more. And if we can incorporate that into our stories in such a way that inspires other people to have a loving relationship with the creatures in their lives, I think that we're doing a service to mankind.
Absolutely. And we're coming close to wrapping it up soon. So why don't we go ahead and start off our final thoughts and where people can find you? We'll start off with you, Black Knight.
Well, um, I always, even from the very beginning, when I was learning the basics of written English, pretty much, because I already had some experience, but it was in my own language. So even from the very beginning, I always made sure to take notes whenever I experience something like that instance with the hamster,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, which was like insane, and awesome, and I was so impressed that later when I saw a bunny, because another friend of mine, they had like a few bunnies. They kept them, and they kept them for the meat, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
But once I think they had um, they had a fox, um, and the fox would like sneak into the chicken coop,
Oops.
of course. And there was a problem that one of their biggest bunnies, uh, whose name was, maybe you guessed the name. Uh, yes, her name was Liliana, short for Lily.
Oh,
And she usually, um, she was friend with the rooster, and sometimes she would sleep in the chicken pen,
oh,
and when that big old fox snuck inside, um the bunny fought fox,
oh
and the
my,
bunny and the bunny killed the fox.
oh my gosh. That's a tough
And
bunny.
yeah, and they showed me, like, they showed me pictures.
Oh wow.
But yes, it's always, and just as James mentioned earlier, with the man eaters, the tigers, and also the dogs who uh, were hunting, like the wild dogs who were hunting the tiger. When we learn from nature and we explore nature, even if it's we're not going into the jungle, but we are reading uh, from the memories of people who actually did, we will never go wrong if we implement all of this, um, and weave um, imaginary animal companions for our readers. And of course, you can read about all of my animal companions, which of them we have a lot, including the um, anthropomorphized animals in my series, in the Star Shelter series, which you can find on Amazon, including the recently published, a few months ago, Lord of the Bones, which also has its share of animal companions, but in the case of Lord of Bones, there are mostly horses, battle deer, because yes, they have battle deer, um, and such. So yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Plenty of fictional animals and animal tales to go around. How about you, Snow? Final thoughts and where people can find you.
Well, of course, you can find me at watcherofthedam.com, where I'm selling my sci-fi western romance saga, Watcher of the Damned. Currently, we have book 8 actually coming out this week. I got my cover finally done, yay! And we have it coming out this week. We'll be doing a soft launch on that. And with the entire series from start to finish, there are animals just chock full in this series, as our mutant cowboys keep on running into them in the Texas wildlands, finding them, having them join the party. And of course, we can't do anything without our animals here in Texas. This is the doggiest place on earth. I swear to you, everybody has pets here. And of course, you can read more about it by going to watchthedam.com, or you can find me on Amazon as R.H Snow. And you can also read on my Substack a little bit about my series, along with some other stuff, although I'm not as famous as Black Knight. And you, James, y'all are like the kings of Substack. But I do put my little thoughts there and a few little snippets here and there. And we'll probably be doing it a lot more now that I get trying to get out of storm season, but you'll be seeing me there also. So at RH Snow's Double Wide of Doom. And so look for me there, or look for me at watchofthedam.com. And remember to love the animals you meet. They have lives far beyond what we realize. And I know that heaven is a place for dogs and animals, because it says, in the peaceable kingdom, the lion shall lie down with the lamb, and the little child shall lead them. And so From start to finish, from cradle to grave, and into eternity and beyond, our animal companions are our friends, our family, and truly are gifts from God.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I need to go take care of my animal companion right quick, too, because he's been patient. But thank you all for joining us. My name is James Esparza, the Talking Sandwich. You can find me at Substack on worldwithoutendlore.substack.com, where I'm releasing bi-weekly short stories. If you're a premium subscriber, you get the short story a few days earlier, but those be available worldwithoutendlore.substack.com. But thank you all for joining us today. Hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. And if you're watching this on the replay, hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and share it with your friends. But with that, we are out of here. Have a good rest of your day, folks. Bye-bye now.